Okay, finally. Finally, it's been so long. It's been such a long time since we've got a Jalal-focused chapter. I mean, really, when is the last time we got like a legit Jalal kind of battle? I mean, I think it was what, the Oracion 6? Because I'm not going to count like him running into Acnologia and, Short just kind of jumping in front of him and doing like, a little barrier block, or, him getting off paneled by August. But before we get to the good stuff that I really want to talk about, I obviously have to talk about the negative portion, because I did mention, previously, that I was hoping for like a larger fight, maybe like a 2 chapter fight and be more of like a battle. Like with Gears, I was hoping he'd be like a much more capable fighter, but with with the other characters, like you already had Doom. Like Wolfen was very situational. Doom was a traditional caster. Metro was he was a more of a standard summoner, and I figured maybe Gears will be someone like a fighter, but it looks like that'll be the God Seed version of Alderaan, I imagine, at this point, because obviously he's fighting Natsu. I mean, that's if he can't like take hits and dish out just like eye damage, then he's in for a bad spot against Natsu. But turns out Gears was more like a axe caster, which again, fine in the case that the way that he was beaten, I was perfectly fine with it in that aspect, because he was clearly a axe caster. Then yeah, he's probably not used to taking a lot of damage. Sure, not a big it wasn't a big kind of like thing for me at that point, because I was hoping maybe like he would have some like weird different kind of like plant type like weird fighting capabilities, like maybe he would have some form of wide range attacks or something. But no, like I said, old-fashioned caster. So as it were, let's get to the content of the chapter itself, because I did want to be like, I can't skip over the parts that I said that I was hoping for that didn't happen. Like I was hoping for like a 2 chapter fight, but seemingly, unless he somehow survives that Grand Chariot, this is a 1 chapter fight. I don't know if we'll get a second one. I'm guessing 60, getting that nice clean number going up to the God Seed Alderaan fight. So we'll see. There's always the possibility, but I kind of doubt it. So after that point, I mean, the only negatives were like, only a 1 chapter fight, and you had Gears go down pretty, well, one big attack. I mean, Grand Chariot is like Jalal's go-to, so that combined with what we already know Jalal. I mean, Jalal we already saw capable of one-shotting Nineheart, even though Nineheart wasn't like obviously not the same as like some of the bigger Spriggan. He's still pretty strong, and like Jalal being able to flex his magic to where Nineheart was kind of freaked out, and then obviously take him out in one like big hit. It makes sense of why he would be capable of doing this to the Gears. The God Seed Alderaan definitely though has to have like a good showing. He has to be capable of it. It looks like he gets weaker every time one of the God Seeds goes down. So I'm guessing that it'll be like, that with them kind of going, he'll get like a weaker connection to Alderaan. And maybe when he goes down, we'll get like this straight Alderaan fight. I'm looking forward to that. I'm curious to know how it'll go. I still don't think that they're going to defeat Alderaan fully this arc. I mean, like, they're setting up some nice, clean, like, fast wins, but I feel like that's done on purpose, maybe to kind of like steer away from what's going to happen with Alderaan. But anyway, let's get to the chapter itself. We're like almost 3 minutes in. We've talked a little bit about kind of like the portion I think people mostly complain about, because outside of like, oh yeah, it was a short fight, I don't really know what there's to complain about. Like I said, it was a super solid. Like Gears' power was interesting. I like how it was resolved. I like the events of it, and it looks like it's finally moved to like a new big step with Urza and Jalal. I'm pretty hyped on that point. But like Jalal's like wondering what these magic circles on him are, and Gears is like telling him how it's gonna mess with his mind. So then Jalal immediately like asks the same thing, and he gets the same response. Like his brain is getting twisted and distorted. And every time he tries to use it, like he's trying to do something, like he tries to use Meteor, it doesn't work. Like he sees an image of himself doing it, and Gears is saying how, yeah, you forgot how to use magic. And then after that point, like he's going to go to attack, and then like he can't figure out, like he's not thinking properly, he can't figure out what to do. After that point, he sees Urza attacking him. So essentially, like as it is, when Gears puts his power on you, you slowly just lose aspects of your brain. You know, it just starts to completely shut down. Like the first part, obviously, it's you're losing the ability to like think of like questions and stuff. You know, like the fact he asked something twice. It's either he's asking it twice, like, you know, is he actually like doing it two times, or is like the scene repeating itself in his head so he fathoms it twice? And then after that point, like he's attacking him. It's like, okay, then he uses meteor, but he's not actually moving. It's just in his head, like thinking about moving. He's just standing there. After that point, like it's you have Gears go into attack. He doesn't see him as as Gears. He sees him as Urza. So like he's just losing himself bit by bit as the fight, and it's actually a really good power. I think out of the God Seeds that he's got my favorite so far. I mean, it's definitely a really neat one. So it'd be kind of like some, like the way I could like be able to describe it, it's like if you had like a dot, like a damage over time or some form of status affecting ability that just kind of stacked and got heavier over time. Like it's like, okay, it's like a toxic in Pokemon. You had normal poison, like different kinds of poison abilities, but toxic every single turn it gets worse and worse. So even if you heal your Pokemon up, unless you get rid of the status effect, then it's just gonna eventually kill you in one turn. But like Jalal, like after that point, like he's trying to go, and it's just a couple moments in, and then Gears is like, all right, your gears have stopped, and we see that like in his brain, like time for him is completely halted. It's not the same as just like his brain is just like he's not thinking. It's like he's in some weird temporal like shift in reality. Because if it was just he stopped thinking till like his brain just kind of went cold, then obviously Ultir wouldn't have showed up when she did. But you get like a nice part where like Laxus and Urza are talking, and Urza's it's like, oh, I gotta go help Jalal, and Laxus is just like, your boyfriend's not, he's not a weak guy. Anybody obviously knowing Urza would get, a little bit flustered by that, because, she's, oh, Jalal's not my boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. But we all know you like each other. Eventually, it's just got to be that last step in order for them to kind of get together, and it looks like, we're gearing up for that. I'm pretty hyped to see how that goes. But I like this fight because, in some ways, like, it's in the reference to, like, older things. I think it reminds me a lot of Urza versus Azuma, like, also a plant tree guy, and how the mindset of thinking about the other one really kind of helped them get over like their obstacles and get in the win for their opponents. But like Jalal's just talking about how his consciousness is kind of fading, and he's like, well, I guess I'm kind of going to be killed by Urza, so like that's fair. Like he's like seeing it as like the a completely logical way for him to go out. But because of the fact these this ability is working on him, he kind of is like mentally existing within stop time. And we know, because Ultir, and I always like that when Ultir shows up, it's always from that nice lower back shot. But Ultir showing up from Lost Ages, the time that she lost, the time she gave up in order to turn back time, exists within this state of stop time. So anytime a character stops time, that's when Ultir shows up. We know that from back in the fight with Demaria. And then she's like talking about, it's like, your body and your thoughts have been stopped by magic. Time is completely standing still. So this is a time distorted world. It's completely separated. Jalal is essentially in like mentally within like another state within kind of just like reality. Like his brain is kind of existing outside of a normal setup. But while I actually thought that like she did something, like maybe she kind of like when she was fighting, or when they were fighting Demaria, like Ultir like was able to pull them into the stop time world. I thought it was gonna be something like that, but it's more of like words of encouragement. She's just talking about like it's not about like what you did now. It's like what do you say? She said, what did she do for you? Obviously, all the stuff that Urza's been going, and this was a really important line. So this part was actually really important, because the thing that people always talk about with Jalal, it's like, well, why doesn't Jalal and Urza ever get together, and stuff? Like, it's been so long, Jalal needs to kind of like forgive himself. And obviously, like, I think as far as Jalal's gone, like a normal person would have forgiven themselves. But I think with him, it's just the fact that it was with all these people that were close to him and all the pain that he kind of caused. It wasn't just like he did it, it was like he did it, but also like everywhere that kind of like spread out from that. Like, it wasn't just the events in the Tower of Heaven. it was like the full reach of what he did, like every single spot that his actions ended up kind of growing towards, everything that it kind of creeped out and latched onto, which I can respect. I understand him, but like Ultir's like saying how he needs to live for Urza, and this is like the new path, like you know, the, as she says, like the sorcerer's crime is over. I like that a lot. I thought that was actually a really good line. And now we're gonna be seeing Jalal being able to kind of like move forward with his life, which I like a lot. And I think that supports like an idea I have of him being more relevant. Like, I think he's gonna have a bigger role in the arc with Selene, because I feel like if you have a space magic eating dragon lady, that if she sees a very handsome space wizard dude, she's probably gonna want to keep him around. And with the White Witch, I still think the White Witch is going to have something to do with, you know, pushing Natsu and Lucy's relationship. And then I think Selene would be perfect towards Urza and Jalal. Because obviously, like with Jalal, I feel like she would take very strong, like, attention to his magic and stuff. Whereas, like, with Urza being the daughter of Irene, like, the direct cause of, like, a lot of issues. I mean, pretty much any big issue when it comes to the dragons, Irene is pretty much responsible for, you know, creating dragon slaying magic, as well as the creation by proxy of the creation of Acnologia, you know, because if it wasn't for her, then the dragon slayers never would have happened. Obviously, by that there'd be no Acnologia. The dragons would probably still, I mean, like, most dangerous case scenario is the dragons would have won the war, and then like humans and dragons would be coexisting. I mean, other than that, it'd be like, oh yeah, you know, all the dragons are, you know, they won, like, the dragons against humans won, and so, like, we just kind of pretty much eat humans all the time. But, like, while he's talking to him, there was the question of, like, how he obviously would get out of this. So, at that point, when he's doing this, and he's like, makes his thought projection of Seagrain, and like, what he does is he makes the thought projection, and he has the effect of the gears go on to that, which is really intriguing. Because that means that anytime he has like some status effects, that Jalal's going to be able to make this copy and put it on him, which I find very intriguing. Because when it comes to the other fights, like the fight with Wolfen, they outsmarted him. Like, Natsu outsmarted Wolfen, obviously making Zareth, so you know he could have potentially killed Alderaan with the Curse of Ankh-Saram. When it came to Doom, there was a high level of teamwork, which I really liked. I really liked Wendy's input, as well as, you know, Max and other members of Fairy Tail, you know, the lower echelons, that because of, you know, all these things kind of like, you know, linking together, they were able to defeat their opponent. When it came to Metro, you know, I had that nice unison raid between Juvia and Gray. And then with, you know, all these different kinds, you know, unison raid, outthinking, you know, and then you have, like, you know, straight teamwork. But when it came to Jalal, because one of the things about Jalal that, you know, a lot of the older characters, obviously, you know, they're gonna have a lot of magic. Like, Makarov knows a good amount of magic besides just, you know, being a giant when he uses his giant magic. Is that Jalal knows a lot of different magics, as we've seen. He knows true heavenly, or he knows heavenly body magic, and obviously true heavenly body magic, but he knows a lot of smaller variations of magic, and obviously thought projection, because that was part of the, you know, part of the plot going into the Tower of Heaven, and the reveal of who Seagrain is. I like that a lot. I really liked that, like, part of the way that he was able to, you know, get out of this power and fight back against Gears is by using something that we know he already had. And I've mentioned before that one of the things about 100 Years Quest I really enjoy is, you know, bringing back older things from way back, you know, in the series. Like I said, in the last chapter, you know, we saw Juvia and Gray, like, Gray learning, like, because of, you know, they had the steam like, coming out of her, and then the boiling water, as well as freezing Juvia, and, you know, in order to fight back against him. I thought those were some nice references back to the first time Gray and Juvia fought. And then now we're seeing some of the older spells. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we got to see, like, Abyss Break come from Jalal. Because the only time we've ever seen Abyss Break, even though regardless it was used twice in the series. Like, there was the time that Phantom Lord was going to use it, and there was the time that Jalal was going to use it. But we haven't really seen it. We have never really saw it except in the video game. The video game is the only place we've actually seen what Abyss Break does. I mean, it's a weird attack because I never expected it to be something like really crazy. I just figured it'd be like some really big elemental blast, you know, some big giant frontal cone of damage. But After that point, like he's like talking about like Jalal, he's like, you know, you forced your magic onto another personality, and Jalal's just like, you're already inside my magic. Bam, drops the freaking move, drops Grand Chariot on this dude. You know, he's being judged by the 7 stars, and just blazing it on him. Big ass attack, beautiful panel. I really like this. I was really happy to see this go down. And the last part is obviously the biggest part of the chapter, when he's like saying how, you know, his gears and Urza's gears overlapped, you know, and he's telling him to stay out of his way. That's a big deal. And I know that, like, it to me, so obviously, like, I really like the pairings in Fairy Tail. I really like a lot of the character interactions, and obviously, like, you know, they have some nice ships, but I like ones that make sense, and I think Hiro Mishima's are done really well. So like I can get behind a lot of like the big ships in the series, and I like Jalal a lot. I think he's a really good character. I think he's one of the better characters in the series. And so seeing him finally like kind of like put his guilt aside after this, and now he seems to be kind of like moving towards Urza, I like that a lot. I think that's going to be really big for his character, and I would like to imagine that after this arc that he will, you know, get to stick around a bit longer. And like I said, my suspicions with him and Celine, it goes into my theory that I think Jalal is going to become a Dragon Slayer. So we have 5th generation Dragon Slaying, and you know, 1st generation you have to learn it either from a dragon, or I kind of would count Eleftheria, because you know he said he learned it himself. I would count that as 1st generation, not just from a dragon. I don't think being from a dragon is really the base thing. I think it's as long as you learn it kind of like in an older sense, like you see it used or you read about it, and then you know you practice it and you gain it. Like create 2nd gen, it's Lacrima. You have a dragon Lacrima put in your body. 3rd gen is 1 and 2. You are both, you know, you both learned it, as well as you have the Lacrima that creates like dragon slaying magic within you. 4th gen seems to be like, from what we saw in the movie, was like, you know, you had the inanimate, you had the Quantum Knights. I still figure it like 4th gen to be like inanimate object. So like obviously the Quantum Knights, and I would consider Urza with her sword kind of like a 4th generation Dragon Slayer, because the way I can see with 4th gen, it's like it's in an object, it's an inanimate weaponized object. Because if it's Urza, like imagine Urza's like, she's technically like say 4th gen, and she's got her sword. It'd be like, well, she isn't, but the sword is. So it's more of like you kind of are while you wield the sword that has the power, but you yourself are not said individual. But I think that going from that point, like going into the next part, for 5th gen, you know, them being able just, you know, they eat the dragons. I'm guessing like once you start intaking dragon meat, it kind of like melds with your DNA and messes with your body. So when it comes down to it, like I said, I think Celine will take an interest in Jalal. I think that she's also going to have some issues with Irene and Urza, assuming I feel like she might be able to see Irene. I don't know. It just seems like she's really going to be really, well, I mean, obviously she's really powerful. It wouldn't surprise me if she would have a weird ability like that. But if there's a situation where, you know, Jalal has to go against Celine in order to help Urza. Like, imagine he's in a spot where, you know, for some reason or another, there's dragon meat, you know, whatever, stuff set up. Either there's another dragon that gets killed, maybe she's got like a couple random dragons with her court or something, you know, just no explanation needed at the moment, just dragon meat. And so Jalal, like in a situation where he's got to save Urza, eats it, becomes a 5th generation Dragon Slayer, as well as like a cosmic Dragon Slayer, like an astral Dragon Slayer, something like that. I think it would be actually a really good idea, because it'd make Jalal more relevant. It'd be like a boost for Jalal, because Jalal hasn't got anything. Like Galaxus got his Red Lightning Dragon mode. I think Jalal getting like an astral dragon slaying kind of thing going on would be really cool. But also I think it would make sense, because if he's willing to throw away really being human, then he himself, for Urza, I think it would be a really cool kind of moment, with especially like when Ultir, you know, tells him, you know, he's got to live on for her. And as well, on top of that, I think it would work really well with Urza's story, because Irene ended up obviously becoming like a full-on dragon in order to protect Urza. But if Jalal also starts going down that path in order to like save and protect her, I think that'd be a really cool kind of story piece of just like how both of these people kind of gave up being human in order to protect her. I think that'll be really good if so. So once we get to that point, like after this arc, I'm really hyped to see like what Hiro Mishima has planned for Celine. and like Celine's arc. Because like Ignia, obviously the only thing we can really say about like the arc with Ignia is Nazi and him are gonna fight 1v1, big awesome battle that'll happen. Viernes is a complete mystery. I'm guessing Viernes is maybe we'll have like lots of different crazy kind of maybe like mystical creatures down and within his, you know, his hidden city. It's obviously still unknown. But when it comes to Celine, I can just see Celine having something to do with, you know, something to do with interest in Jalal. I'm very happy, or I'm very hyped to see that. I'm obviously very happy. I kept saying, I when I was saying excited and hyped, I was gonna say happy, and then I was like, okay, no. Next sentence, happy. And then I was gonna say happy, and I messed up on that. But yeah, I'm very happy about this chapter. Like I said, there were still parts that I wish were different. Like I would have liked the fight to be longer. I don't think it's gonna be another chapter, but I could be wrong. But if my biggest complaint is, oh man, I would have liked, you know, another couple pages for that fight, not a big deal. Because here's the thing about, like, I will say about Gears that I really like when authors do, if it's a character that isn't going to stick around very long. Because when it's a character that it's, you know, they're going to only really have like a handful of panels and moments before they're no longer within the run of the story, I really would appreciate it when it comes to that, is that they use them more. For instance, if you have, you know, somebody like Marin Hollow, who's just got kind of like his, you know, his magic with his whole like law of space and shit. That, you know, he's got like really he can just teleport and he can lock people out, and you know maybe he can, you know, snap his fingers and take them. But I mean that was kind of like all right, not a really big deal. Any character that it's like, yeah, I exist for this part, and then you get out like Dobengal from Sabretooth. Any characters like that where it's like, yeah, I'm only going to use him for this scene, and then afterwards, never again. I guess Dobengal isn't the best because, I mean, he kind of got like casually pushed aside by Grand Magic Game Dark Natsu. But, you know what I mean? When it comes down to that, it's, I lost my train of thought. Okay, anyway, when it comes down to like a character, and I talked about this when it came to Doom, is when you're getting rid of a character, like if we don't get Gears, if Gears is completely dead, we don't see him again. I really like when authors end up giving a good amount to the character before they get rid of them, because it gives them a little bit more substance and flavor. That's what I liked about Doom. Like, even though Doom like went down within that chapter that all those guys showed up, I liked that we saw different versions of his ability, as well as we saw that with Gears, which I liked. Like at the start it was like this weird kind of like repeats in your head, and then he was like, it was like messing with his ability to kind of like use magic, and his vision was getting messed up. He was seeing different people, and then eventually his mind kind of like lingered out into like literally a spot where time is just halted. You're so brain frozen that you literally exist kind of between time, not between time, but really where time is just not moving anymore. So I'm really hyped to see that. I can't wait to see how this relationship goes down between Urza and Jalal. I'm really looking forward to seeing how things go with Celine. Because if it was Viernes next, it'd be different. But I feel like with Celine, Jalal has to be relevant. Because not only is obviously Jalal, you know, a big deal to Urza, but, you know, like I said, you know, he's got heavenly body magic. We've got a character that is going to be, you know, eating and absorbing magic from the sun, moon, and stars. The only other character I could see really getting deep with, like, connected with her is Kana, because the way that it was described, Moondragon abilities work very similarly to Fairy Glitter. So we'll see how that goes. I'm really interested to see what's next in this. As if the worst that's happened in this one to start was like, man, I would have liked the fight to be a little longer. But I think Jalal having this big step forward is worth way more. This is really big for him, and I'm really excited to see where this goes. So other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.